This is day 19 of our European tour, October 2009. We visited the island of Santorini in the middle of the Aegean Sea between Athens and Ephesus. The island of Santorini was devastated by an earthquake in the 16th century, and that earthquake volcano exploded and it became a caldera, which is where the cruise ships anchor and the passengers are transported to the island. Here's a lovely photograph of a cruise ship, or I should say cruising yacht. Santorini has a number of little islands, and I think this one was right in the middle of the caldera. And the cruise ship transported us by ferry or boat tender. Once we arrived on the port of Anthios in a little community called Vera, we got on the cable car and we travelled up the mountain to the main shopping centre and tourist area, I would think you'd call it. Once we got up to the top of the little town called Vera, we went on a walking tour of all the little shops and whitewashed cubic houses, 300 metres above the sea and 587 steps if you bothered to walk it, but obviously we took the cable car. And right along these walking tracks and a whole heap of shops and these lovely whitewashed houses and hotels and cafes, and here's a view of the Caldera and some of these unusual houses built on the cliff side. Now you can imagine an earthquake devastating this town, and they're perched precariously on the side of cliffs, and would be quite frightening or devastating to suffer an earthquake. There were some old houses in amongst all these, and this particular one had no name. It looks like an old church, but here's a still image of it from a different angle. We walked a little bit further and got these fantastic views of the Caldera and the mountains surrounding the different townships, and these are called the Caldera Cliff Wall. The caldera was formed by a massive explosion that blew out the centre of the island 3,600 years earlier. While we're on a walking tour, we came across the Three Bells of Vera, a church, and you can notice the little flag poles or poles out the front with the white and the blue, and the whitewashed white with the blue top, the colours of the Greek flag. And here is a Google video of a panoramic view of the church, and of course our group wandered around the church and then walked through the shops and other novelty stores. More of these fantastic views of the islands off the island of Santorini, and the beautiful whitewashed houses and hotels and along the cliff face. Then we had a look at this church, St. Theodorus, Vera's Holy Church, Orthodox Church, and here's a still image of the Three Bells. And then we walked through the shops around the church and had a bit of a look at the windows. We didn't stop to buy anything. We were on a walking tour, obviously. Some more fantastic views of that beautiful dark blue sea and those funny whitewashed roofs, round roofs of the church. And some shops, of course. This was about the 6th cruise ship that pulled into the Caldera of Santorini, and everybody's taken photographs of that, as well as the other views that we were privileged to witness. Not sure whether these round roofed whitewashed cubes were hotels or accommodation or part of the church. But then we went and visited a lookout or panoramic view of the island, and everybody lined up there, and the sunlight was such that I didn't get a very good video image of it. If we'd stayed any longer, the place would have been crowded because people congregate on the viewpoint for the sunset before they go wandering back to their hotels and dinners and such. So we walked back through the old church grounds and took some video and some photographs of the lovely little trees and the monument, and it was quite beautiful, quite peaceful, nobody around. Then we went and visited the Santorini Windmills, and I think they're villas or accommodation in these windmills these days. This is a view inside one of the churches. I can't remember which one. But one thing I'm always amazed at about Greek Orthodox churches is all the colourful icons and imagery that they love to put into their churches. And I'm telling my wife that there's 5 minutes or so to go, which really did turn out to be a lot longer than that. Here's a view of the donkey trail that was another alternative rather than the cable car to get up the mountain. And here's an older woman enjoying the fresh air of the walk with a fag hanging out of her hand, and some of the shops, bright colours. And here's some of the donkeys walking up the steps. We could have taken the donkeys back down, but 300 metres I decided on the chairlift again, and we were running out of time, so the tour group should have stayed together. This is a big image of the upper station of Santorini's cable car, and a view from the cable car down. You can see a number of cruise ships in the Caldera Bay, and a picture of the little island in the centre of the Caldera. And down at the lower level, my wife took video of the cable car and the people from our tour group arriving on the second lot of cable cars. Some of the smiling faces of our tour group, and then me, obviously the biggest person in the group with the biggest tummy and a bit of a cheeky smile, and that was the end of that. Then we went back to the old harbour and waited with the group to go back on the passenger ferries back to the cruise ship. And here's an image of getting right on, not on dusk, but here's an image of the shopping centre that's at the port, and obviously orientated towards gifts and tourists. And here's an image of the ferries taking people out to the cruise ships, and the ferries or tenders lined up and waited their turn and then came into the dock and picked us up. And while we were waiting, it was getting darker and the lights came on, and all the cafes and shops surrounding the Caldera of Santorini. And here's an image of one of the cruise ships, whether it was ours or not I can't remember. And here's a shot of the cable car going up and down the mountain. and by the time we got back to the cruise ship and started to settle in, this absolutely wonderful sunset occurred. Once we arrived back in Athens, we had a day tour of the city of Athens, and then later in the day we caught the bus from Athens to the port of Petrus, which is on the west coast of Greece, and got back on the Aegean pool and did an overnight cruise from Patras, Greece, up to Venice, Italy, for our day tour, or our tour of Venice. I've shown this before, but they scan your card to make sure that they've got the right amount of passengers and that they haven't left anybody behind. And then you go on board the cruise ships.
Thank you.
And here's some video of us leaving on the cruise ship of the port in Patras. One of the interesting features was this bridge that spans across the Gulf of Corinth, and then we moved further out and entered the Ionian Sea on our way up to the port in Venice. And here are some images of the mountains of Greece from the deck of the cruise ship, and I'll leave you to have a look at those and then watch the sunset along with us standing on the deck of the Aegean Pearl cruise ship for the last time. Here's an image of my wife with some alone time, leaning on the post looking at the scenery, and then later on dusk as the sun set over the Ionian Sea. The video was produced by myself, and it's the end of another exciting video of day 19 of our European tour 2009. We visited the island of Santorini in Greece.